Hello everyone. Hi, how you doing? My name is Harper, King Harp on YouTube. So I'm here to discuss some matters with you. And I've been doing a lot of everybody I've been starting some channels and stuff like that, doing a lot of different talks about a lot of different subjects concerning black people because we are in a uprise and also we are in a demise. And it's kind of a lot going on with us, with our policy, with our non-legislations, our legislative matters, things that are not been implemented in terms of laws in our community, and we just have to take our time and pull everything apart. Following thought leaders in the community, and being black out here, just all together being black. I mean, we got situations going on. So there's a subject matter that I'm going to talk about right now, and I'm just going to give a broad perspective on thought leaders in the black community and what's going on. I think you will find this pretty interesting because a lot of us are following each other, but a lot of us we got attitude. Some of us because of certain things that go on in infighting, and it's relevant to us. However, I respect every one of us who are sincerely looking to unfold truths for the greater good of our community and our upstanding well-being as a black person, as a thriving black person, as a black person that's deserving on legislative power and legislative order in terms of this society that we were forced to be prisoners of war in. And I can say foremost, my family are, I'm a descendant of slavery. However, I don't feel that that brings me down to no certain point. I have progressive people that are in my family. I can name call some of them. I have a progressive nature as a person of a progressive family, a person of value, a person of, you know, um, throttle. You know what I'm saying? So we as black people have not been corrected in our society. We have not. These are facts, and a lot of black people, a lot of us descendants of slaves, don't know that. We don't understand it totally. We know it, but we don't understand it. I mean, so I'm following everyone, and I'm looking at mainstream media, and I'm looking at a lot of the way they're projecting who we are and how it's such a monopoly and such a chessboard when it comes down to us. And what we need, I follow Yvette Cornell, I follow Tariq Nasheed. Look, I look at everything. Nobody's gonna tell me what to look at. I know how to eat the fish and throw away the bones. But for one thing, I I look at all of us, all of us, whether we're wrong or right. But it's up to my intelligence to break it down as a person of constituency because I'm a descendant of slavery. And I am a Gen X generation. This is my heir doing the talking. And we have elders also, Dr. Claude Anderson, and I don't care what we, the Black Truth, the Professor Black Authority, the Black Authority, I'm calling a few names on people, but these are people that we develop where we develop an understanding of who we are as people who are interested in overcoming matters that we are under. And that means, systematic oppression. I mean, we're under it and we can do something about it. And we are doing something about it. Because, like I've told people in my family and other people, those groups that I've been employing myself to is the reason why they're even discussing reparations for black people. No, a lot of those groups did not cheer on Joe Biden. We did not proxy for Joe Biden or either the Democrat Party. We did not proxy neither for the Republican Party. We were looking at the pros and cons, looking at the ins and outs and which things exist, looking in the science of it so that we can be corrected. Our main objection is for reparations. Reparations can be done. It literally can be done. They're studying it now. They're showing you now that reparations can be done, but if they're not going to be talking, they're not going to be in a group, we don't have to do nothing. See, our major voice is when we come to unity. You see what I'm saying? Inside of a group, in the way this society is anchored, you're not a voice if you're not in unity. They know that. That's the meticulous reason for being broken up through a power source that used us resourcefully for hundreds of years and not wanting us to gain access to that adjacent power and to benefit from it. We, as descendants of slaves, have been the apparatus of the wealth of the United States, a first world nation. And I'm just talking about us because there's been slavery all over the country, but I mean all over the global diaspora. But I'm talking about the United States, where we are in litigation with our government, well, in terms of opportunities. And because we haven't had those opportunities, we are left to be exploited in so many ways, and it has executed to the point we have the failure of being on the bottom in terms of economic power and legislation and political existence inside this legislative body, literally. And they're letting you know right now that reparations is definitely possible because they wouldn't be putting it up. Sheila Jackson Lee, the head of Congressional Black Caucus, we've been pressing her for the last year or two or more to study or to, they don't have to study it, but then again, we're going to say study reparations, which John Conyers from Detroit has implemented that policy in 1980. And I spent a little time in Detroit. I lived there for 14 years. I actually know somebody who know John Conyers. I know very resourceful people. I know somebody who lived down the block from him, and he actually proposed that to the Congressional Black Caucus in 1980. It has nothing been done with it. Because you see, what happened is black people turned away from politics, which is your life. Politics is your life. Why you think Dr. King was so important? He was doing policy. He was implementing laws. He was gaining traction for policy and legislation concerning black people. Why do you think people take, and I'm going to tell you, there's a very interesting topic. There's going to be a lot of discussion here, and I'm going to bring up a lot of discussion and articulate and give a lot of analysis to these situations that you will benefit from, that you will definitely appreciate. And again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. I'm King Harp. The Congressional Black Caucus was born to embody safety and protection for people that were slaves. The 14th and 15th Amendment was also born to protect and give citizenship for those who were born as slaves as three-fifths of a human. We would now have citizenship and not be property, because slaves were property and resourceful to the United States diaspora and the United States economic source and trade. My very body, my grandparents, the blood that run through my vein, experiencing the fear tactics that come with it, and to be separated with no fault of my own, to be the apparatus of this wealth of this nation, to make this nation great. There are big, beautiful enclaves and empire of white supremacy, of slave holders, because of slavery, because of the work, the labor, the free labor, and the hard labor that slavery did. But yet, when it was time for them to exchange with that inheritance, to be actually free when they freed the slaves, it never was exchanged upon us. It was never exchanged upon our community. The 40 acres and the mule, it was never implemented. So Dr. King, when he started talking about economics, if you will remember, and he started talking about cutting the check, this is later on no longer than a month later, Dr. King was put to rest, including Malcolm X, because they were becoming allies. So they shut the subject down. As a matter of fact, you kill leaders. As of right now, we're not doing necessary leadership. We doing basically thought leadership. We community project. We're doing project takeover. We gaining a traction in terms of being a code of conduct, being on code, on one accord, to gain a group massive ideology to pursue that which is desperately needed and owed to us as a society, as a society, as a society. And let me get not too far from the realization of what you need to know. Reparations is definitely possible. A lot of black people don't realize that. When I first started talking this stuff, going with these groups, people's like, "Oh, you think we're gonna get it?" Yes, I do. It's up to us. It's up to us to gain a traction of unity. It's all about awareness. It's not over and beyond. We've done everything over and beyond to prove to a power source that we can do what they do. We always have to be so much better when we even go to college. We have to come in their establishments being better than they are to do what they're doing. For instance, if somebody got a associates as a white person, they can work in your department and you got a master's degree because you got to prove yourself more because of what they design. You got to understand what this is right here. However, I'm not going to get too off the subject. I want to clear this point. We are pulling people in to follow and to understand legislation, body, and power, and to gain policy so that we get our reparations. Reparations is not just money. Let me explain to you what reparations is. I'm studying this stuff, and I've been studying this for the last probably 6 or 7 years now, maybe even more. Reparations is government protection. That is something that should empower, that is to repair something which you have damaged. And that's what reparations is. We need protected class citizenship, first class citizenship, which Dr. King was going after. It's so necessary because if you get opportunity zones, let me level with you. Government access and government power is a shaping over you. You were born into this. You connected to it. You see, slavery somehow stopped in terms of being in forced labor, physical forced labor, and being under fear tactics or heinous acts. But it went to another level. It has not ended because we have not gotten the things that take to be free, in which why we were enslaved. And that is opportunity. That is a dollar amount. That is to exchange in business and to have business camaraderie, which other people have. This land that they're trading in with Walmarts and Kroger, apartment buildings, all these were cotton fields, which we bled and died to perform a duty. All these inventions that came from black people that were paid by a power source because we were considered property. If you look it up, we damn near invented everything that's resourceful today. We were very instrumental in this very smooth running first world nation. Black people, slave descendants. I'm not talking about black people from other places, which I don't mind them coming here, and I'm not xenophobic. However, I know who I am, and I'm glad of that. I'm not in a mixture of things. People that come to this place, the United States, the first world nation, people who come to this place look for what they call the American dream that was built upon the backs of slaves. And we are the only group that has not been gone compensated in terms of policy, legislation, and physical form. We're the only group that have not been allowed opportunity in a protected class manner. They have given opportunity to Asians. They've given opportunity to Jews. They've given opportunity to even immigrants now. Well, a lot of black people went out and voted President Joe Biden in office. He's passed a lot of executive order, but none for black people and African American people that are native to this country. And a lot of us don't even know we're natives. We are. And, we're in a fight for our lives. This is a political war. We're at war. And we're demanding justice. We're not asking for it, but we're looking for attraction of unity from our people to follow and to give your time and service, to pay attention to these talks and understand this is very real and very, very serious that we're doing this out here. We got a lot of inventions. We're showing our people who we are and what we truly embody in our intellects and not what they've depicted in a narrative that raise our children, the media, making rappers off the hardship of the war on drugs when we had no opportunity or element of comfortable choice when they dropped crack cocaine and drugs off in our communities in the 70s and 80s. And you did that to a docile people that never were protected in terms of government legislative power, in terms of policy. They never got the inheritance. They never were actually able to benefit from that which they had to be killed and died from, but you did. And everybody that comes to this country benefit from the back-breaking free labor and the hardship and the death of slavery, which is my people, which the blood run through my vein. We drunk the breast milk of a freed slave. You see, slavery was an institution that built this society. And we have not received an inheritance according to who we are in the society. Now, the native Indians have, but there were also native black people here. They've received, someone pick up $600 checks every 2 weeks. We paying, do you know we pay college tuitions? Some people that go to college for very major things and Ivy Leagues can't even afford it. And they can't afford their lives because they did not come from the origin of wealth and power as a slave descendant. You may have came from progressiveness and greatness, but you did not come from ownership because the United States have not allowed you to own anything. You were actually owned. They have not gave you that, they have not implemented that policy, which were you supposed to be in ownership. And when we did pull our boots up by our bootstraps and built Black Wall Street, Rosewood, and other communities throughout the United States diaspora that were thriving communities for black people, it was destroyed from the era with United States military equipment. Okay? So reparations is not just for slavery, but also Jim Crow and redlining. Repairing. We are owed. Our tax dollars is going to DACA, which immigrants took as dreamers. Our uncle, Dr. King, said that he has a dream. Well, that's the word where dreamer came from, that was made as a legislative source and a policy for deferred action of children coming here with no arrival from immigrants that President Obama made with his executive authority. And we, as black people, put him in authority, in power. And he made DACA so that he can protect people coming from other nations. And that's not really ironic once you look at who President Obama was. President Obama was Nigerian and white. He was never us. Michelle Obama is a descendant of slavery, but she married the bag. Okay? And she's an educated woman that married into a wealthy situation. Because I'm going to tell you something, that's not real wealth because of them being black. But they're married into a wealthy situation. And Mr. Obama came to talk about him to Chicago to learn what it is to be a black person, to be a descendant of slavery. He didn't know. He went to a affluent school. Yes, his mother ran around and left him with his grandparents, who was a banker. And all of these things, he lived a white life, and he was Nigerian. His father went to Harvard University. No, maybe Morehouse. No, Harvard. In Atlanta, while you guys, black people, were out protesting for justice. And when things got bad, his father went back to his African country to avoid it. So did Kamala Harris. They went back during that time when she was a child. Her mother took her to Canada, and they lived next door to the Seagrams. She's not black. She's Jamaican and Asian Indian. And Asian Indian are people who own businesses throughout the United States diaspora and who gain, your dollar amount and who they respect. Because, see, I'll tell you why people do us like that. Because we were never really made and bred in this country for respect. We were always supposed to be resourceful. And they partner with other groups from other places or other people to continue our demise in business and in uprise and leadership and policy. And they're trying to do it over our heads, but we came to stop that. One reason we could stop that, they owe us over $20 trillion in reparations. We're in litigation with our country. The country owe a debt. And anybody that comes to the country and benefit from the development and the establishment of this country off of slavery also is required to pay that debt with tax dollar. Because we pay taxes. Slave descendants should not pay taxes. We should, because we didn't come from a situation where we have so much economic power and resource of wealth. We did not come from that. There's a huge disadvantage. So we can't do what Becky or someone else could do or, Alice could do. Because they grandparents own people. So they have they are more accepted in terms of being who they are. They have authority because of that, because they understand community. They are the code of conduct. They've never been separated. We, as descendants of slaves, had to experience fear tactics and being understood a certain language we use. We invented so much stuff. We created the narrative. We made not Hollywood probably so, but jazz and beautiful music and things like that. We are talented people that somehow I believe that we're God chosen people because it was set up for us to be demised. And for hundreds of years, our people suffered. When we go around this country, we're looking into museums, right? We have to pay to get into the museums. The Jewish people don't have to pay to get into the Holocaust things. They don't. They don't have to pay. East Indians, Native Indians don't have to pay for stuff. They get checks. They don't have to pay to do nothing because this is supposed to be their land. But we died and bled on it to build the economic resourceful status and enterprise that the United States is introducing and hosting to the world. We have not been compensated. And now, since we have not, the reason why we don't have protection at the local level is because we don't have protection and at the higher level, at the legislative level. At the level where what I'm talking about protections is getting policy. Reparations is protections. It's going to come with protections. Making banks pay back. Wells Fargo, Chase Bank is going to have to be responsible for insuring slaves, letting us build, not tearing down what we have done. You see, the reason we are like we are is because we were open to exploitation. We're like guinea pigs or something in terms of a group. Not all of us, because I have the revolutionary mindset. And I understand why. I pay attention. A lot of people should now, especially now, because they got bad water in certain cities. They're really trying to harm black people. And Black Lives Matters were born off of black men getting shot in the back. And $90 million were made in 2020. None of this money is going to any kind of black empowerment. And other people have joined it. You see, this is what you do to a slave. You use whatever they have provided to be resourceful for yourself because they're not people. You see, somehow we're still here. Other people understand this in terms of hierarchy, in terms of government power, enforcement policy. You see what I'm saying? We have people that are descendants of slaves that are embodying leadership, supposedly, inside these organizations that were born for us, using their startership for other situations, for immigration, when black people are being harmed and shot by police. And when we living in conditions that are dire situation in our community, black people cannot afford a roof. And black people serving on the local level, serving on these jobs, that's subservient to. You don't get to own a business. These people are getting loans to come in this country and run gas stations and liquor stores. It's not because they're smart. It's because they have an opportunity given by our government, which we died and bled for. And because we don't say nothing, they're going to continue. So we're here to gain traction. We're here to gain audience. We're here to gain movement. And we're not playing. There's all millions, a couple million of us now. We coming. We coming to get our check. We coming to get our due. That's why they're talking about it right now. Every black person right now is at least owed $4 million apiece when it comes down to the real math in terms of what happens. But if you get something, say if you get 500,000, there's there's a lot of code of conduct, a lot of ways to distribute reparations where if someone is not worthy or competent enough, they have to go through a certain procedure. If you get a house and keep up your payment for 6 months, then you get to start a business. Or if you keep a vehicle for a certain amount of time, or this company is partnering with us in terms of maybe they may say ADOS or FBA, whatever name the government wants to give us in terms of our protections. Put something on our IDs now, something on our licenses, like they did the Native Indians, like the Jews, like, you know what I'm saying? Like the Chinese that was in concentration camps. I mean, we are the only people going uncompensated. That's because we need to come together and speak out. And we need to hold our politicians responsible. We need to hold our spokespersons responsible. And we don't need a leader. We need code of conduct. We need a community. We need the body of unity to enforce power. Unity is power, you see. And so black people now, we're talking. Oh, we coming. So we on the way. So we fixing this all up now. We're not going to continue to be on the bottom economically when everybody's benefiting from who we are, taking our name, putting it on their chest. DACA dreamers. Dr. King used that word. And other people coming here don't even know nothing about Dr. King, anything about our struggle, and saying they're dreamers. Their children are owning, being our bosses inside these businesses. Are they owning businesses in our community? They get loans because the demand is that they be upstanding citizens. So they have to be show that they're upstanding. And the United States give them loans. They get loans from the banks. So they have a throttle from our resourceful ingenuity, from our pain and suffering. And this is what reparations is for. And it's to embody a protective mechanism to buffer us into a safety. And we did try to do that. And now, because the United States destroyed that, we don't get to look back on that and say to our children, oh, maybe I'm in this part of the world. I'm going to go to Black Wall Street because I'm need to be around my people, and go where affluent black people are. Well, no, we can't do that. That was taken from us. Malcolm X never did make it to be the president or anything because Malcolm X is dead. Martin Luther King never got to be around to really show us how to be constructive in business and political authority because he's gone. You see, but they using all of this, and they made sure people like John Lewis knew how far to go. These are facts, and I want to articulate that in more of a factual form, in a factual form, because I know it makes sense to you, but I want to give you receipts, and I can. And I'll be back to do some more talks and everything, but keep your eyes on the prize. We are definitely want to anchor ourselves in protections and in reparations. It's very imperative that we do so. I don't care how much money you have or what you're doing. In terms of being protected as a group, we need that. Even Oprah, in terms of protection, she don't necessarily need the money part where we're becoming homeowners like we do in terms of a business and everything. But in terms of a people, we also need to have a legislative uh, anchoring and a apology in terms of what reparations really mean, and that's repairing, embodying protection, so that now black people don't be harmed by the hands of authority. Because when we have, and I touched on that earlier, but I forgot to continue. When we have, like I say, a legislative respect in power and policy, what happens is first it comes through the governor, you see, and then the mayors, and then the judges, and then the police. You see, when you go to the police department, there's three departments usually in big cities in the police department. You have the police department, you have internal affairs, city council, the judge. So you have three or four different departments. But the lowest department is the police. So you can't do police reform necessarily, not necessarily, and chastise them. What you have to do is legislation. Reparations, speak to the head. You always know when you get the head what to follow. So you talk to the head, and that's the government, the Supreme Court. Then they get the judges in order, and they send out the memo, and the police get it. These people are to be left alone, like they did with immigrants when they told when Obama invented DACA with his executive authority, and they told the police not to ask them their citizenship. When they told ICE, you're not going to go get them. This is the power of our democracy. And if they can do it for them, they can definitely do it for black people. They can let the world know we are not tolerating this in terms of this, in terms of black people speaking out, in terms of unity intellectually in a substantial way. We're trying to gather our people from being indoctrinated. We've been harmed. Our people strung out on drugs, been on corners. We depicted in certain images on mainstream media, whereas our children are emulating these characters through the war on drugs, rap music, and now we become something that they can easily say that we are and don't have to respect us. We gain in traction to have the conversation, to pay attention so that we can be respected and so that we can get legislative order and policy in terms of who we are, and we can embody the strength and sustain opportunity zones that T.I. and them talking about building. Well, that's another talk. But we cannot sustain these things unless we're protected. We built Black Wall Street, but we had no protection. You see? So if police are going to be let free for shooting someone unarmed because they was running when you could have tased them, you see, we need to, that reparations got to protect that. We can't go around necessarily shouting all the time. We will, but we got to understand policy and procedure. We got to understand government. We got to understand this legislative body in terms of laws. We got to understand who we are, where we come from, why this is happening. Because you came from a slave and that you was resourceful to the society. And not necessarily that, because the society has not chosen to give you protection in terms of a group. They have exploited you and said you're lazy, you're trifling, and depicted mainstream media to put whatever language upon you and for you to be indoctrinated, and that's who you are. Because you never were a person that was protected in this political society from slavery, from the institution of slavery. So now is when we doing it. We understand the protections, and once we get that done, we can come down through, and the police understands the United States have used their authority and power to say to us that Black people are now having an opportunity to develop without us harming them. This is racism. You understand this? And we need to have a voice of unity for power so that we can be respected in main government. And you want to know who the main government really is? It's the Democrat Party. That's who they deemed as main government. They have a lot of power. Why do you think when they took over, they took both Senate and House? They've been in authority, but you see, we tried to kind of do something, but Republicans were never really saying as much as we wanted them to say in terms of who we are, and there was a lot of racism going on there. And however, the Democrat Party has got a lot going on now too, but we embody some type of unity when it come down to Democrats, because a lot of y'all voting for a Democrat, not necessarily effective unity, but at least we're all on one side. So it's kind of a Jedi mind trick, but at least we're beginning the process of understanding, and that's why I did this talk. But thank you for joining me. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining me, and I'll come back and speak to you again about our concerns among the government, society, and community. I'm King Hart. Thank you for joining me.